Welcome to Silicon Valley Impact, where business insight meets startup innovation. And now,
everybody's happy.
Please give a warm welcome to your host, Brian Sparks!
Yeah. Let's light this candle. Welcome to the game show hour.
Is Silicon Valley Impact with Brian Sparks.
Bring the heat. Next level, Brian. Thank you so much. Next level. Next level.
I wanted to bring it up a notch, Brian, and that's how I decided to do it. We had our 50th episode last week, and we didn't really get a chance to celebrate because you kind of sprung it on me. I didn't know it was there, and so this was my celebration.
I love it. Yeah, let it rip.
Thank you.
What's your best move, Alicia? I love it.
How are you, Brian? Nice to see you.
Good to see you. I'm loving this show 51. You know what? And I think there's a reason why I didn't really call it out enough. I think we're just doing what we love. And we're around great people, and we're just rolling with it. And it did sneak up on us.
We don't care about stats. We're not here to prove anything to anybody.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say we're in over 20 countries at this point anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need to say
Small
that.
flex.
Yeah.
Small flex.
I understand.
Yeah, I just kind of let that sit there.
All right.
Okay. I want to welcome everybody to Silicon Valley Impact. I'm your host, Brian Sparks. The purpose of this show is to have honest conversations about what it takes to build great businesses and communities so that you can make an impact in your own. Yes. All right. And so today, show 51, we have 3 amazing guests. Also, I want to give a shout out to Witham Accounting and Salesbricks, our new sponsors. Thank you so much. You'll be hearing a little bit more from them. And Witham is going to actually be in here next month. We're going to be doing a lot of talking about accounting because I'm not a numbers guy, but these guys are. And so I want to have these conversations about numbers so that the startups and those who are launching their business has that play right, because you can make a lot of mistakes. I don't want you to make mistakes with your numbers. So we're going to take that off the table and we're going to have a conversation about it. So Witham will be in here next month, and we'll also have John in here from Salesbricks, who has launched an incredible sales AI company. And so we'll be talking with them in the next few months. But as mentioned, we have 3 amazing individuals today. And Brian, I got to say, I don't know if we're going to be able to keep the lid on this show again. The energy before we went live or went on the mic was just off. Yeah. It was
everybody's been having a get time so far.
Yeah.
I mean, we could call it right now, and I would have had a great day.
Yeah. We just need to start the show the second people walk in. I mean, Alicia's brought us a plant. Did you see the plant, by the way?
I did.
Yeah. Look at that.
Some brownies and some other... So I'll give a...
that's for the YouTube people, so take a look at that. Look at this.
Look at this. This is insane.
We love gifts and swag.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let me introduce you to the 3
Enough about us and our treats.
About us and our treats. Let's bring in these 3 rock stars. Alicia, I'll start with you. We also have Rachel and Carl here. But Alicia, I'm so excited that you're here today. I don't like to use that word excited, but in a big way. I'm so excited here. That you're here. For those who are listening, give a quick little intro of who you are so that they could be brought up to speed on what you're working on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a scientist by training, and I turn into an entrepreneur, and then I turn into an investor. So currently, I am a very, very active investor, making sure that some of the technology that changes the way we live for improvement work.
I love that. And one of the biggest hearts you'll ever meet. So thank you so much for being here. We'll talk a little bit about what you're working on. We'll talk a little bit about Australia. We'll talk about a lot of things. But Rachel, you just came in from...
I flew in from Arizona this morning, but, long distance coming in from Napa.
Yeah.
And I am an investor and lobbyist and consultant who's been working at sort of the nexus of technology and state and local government for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's obviously a pretty wild time right now to be in that sector, but it's also really, really exciting. So in the ways that Alicia makes, the body and our lives better, I think that there's a lot of impact in making our governments work better too.
I love that. And so you find funding in that space? Just
Yeah, so I have my own fund, and I also have this great network of investors and lobbyists and operators and exited founders who I sort of rally around ideas and companies and entrepreneurs. And then in a perfect world, those entrepreneurs work with each other too, because they're often sort of solving point solutions within the government process.
Yeah.
And when they work together and sort of daisy chain to a larger solution, it tends to be more effective.
And not only do you have this great insight, you're a great speaker, because you and I met at GFX in Roseville, put on by the Capital Factory. Did I say that right?
Capital Factory.
Capital Factory, yeah. Our buddies out in Sacramento.
Nope, Growth Factory.
Growth Factory.
There it is.
Growth
Why did we both just get that wrong?
I know.
We know them. We know them
and
well.
I just want to point out that anybody wants to go back into the archives, we had a great chat with Rachel at the time and an interview during that session. I mean, really great. We really opened my eyes to a lot of things that she's working on.
Yeah.
And I know we'll do that again today.
Yeah. And Rick from the Growth Factory.
There it is.
Yeah.
Emphasize.
Yeah, has been on the show, and I think that was somewhere in the 20s, but he was on with, I believe at the time, Keith. I think he was, no, Kevin. Kevin
Jurkic?
Yeah.
Yeah, the ex-NFL player.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was that, when Rick was here in the studio is what got us out, the idea that we were going to travel out to Sacramento and do an episode out there, which turned out to be excellent.
It was great. And so I believe they'll be doing that soon again this year. So stay tuned. We're definitely going to be plugged in.
They're doing some amazing things out there in the Sacramento area.
Don't sleep on that. And we say Sacramento. They're actually out in Roseville, but we're saying the Sacramento region. And they're doing a lot of great things out there, and they're leading the charge. So stay tuned for more information on that. But Rachel, great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me,
Thanks for making it. Really appreciated it. Carl, what's up, buddy?
What's up?
Good to have you here.
You. Very happy to be here.
Yeah.
Excited as you are.
Yeah, you
made it happen.
You and I met in, was it Santa Monica?
Yeah.
Santa Monica at a CXO summit.
Yes.
You were speaking there. Again, we just geeked out. I kind of interrupted you as you were getting into the zone to speak. And you were like, who's this guy? We talked about this before. And then we got into it, and you took the stage and you crushed it. And then you and I just hit it off. So I'm so happy that you're here today. For our audience, give a quick little intro what you're up to.
Yeah. Hey, I'm a 20-plus year tech enthusiast. I've been through every major technology innovation in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. Born and raised native here, a product of a military brat. I'm a military kid. Turned entrepreneur, turned investor. Currently working with Supermicro as GM of sales and business development, leading a lot of AI initiatives for some of the largest companies in the Valley. So enjoying that. It's been transformational. It's been very, very, front row seat to human impact. So I like how you said, scientists to make sure things work right. I feel like I just want to make things work right so that people can feel better, right? And people can live their lives. I think what we want to really do is live our lives better. Yeah. Right, and technology provides a thoroughfare for us to do that.
And the way that you're able to give insight into that with all the transition goes on. I mean, I know people posture and want to share with what they're learning with AI, but really we're in such a growth phase of technology that no one person I think knows exactly what's coming, but you are on the forefront with what you're doing. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, I love geeking out on go-to-market strategy, which you have a ton of experience with, building relationships, finding value adds other than just being salesy, building the community, which you're amazing at. So we'll talk about that.
Love it.
And we'll get into it. But let me drop the first question on all of you that I just really enjoy asking all our guests. And here it is. And I'll just throw it out here and just let it sit there. You are all so good at what you do, and you all bring unique value to the ecosystem of startup and investing. What is it about this experience that you have that you love? What is it? What is it that you love? I really enjoy this question because you really see where people's hearts are. But what comes top to mind to you when it's about loving this, what we do?
Well, I think I'm going to start because I grew up in a socialist country to socialist parents. And my dad was a scientist. He was a romantic scientist, knowledge for the good of the world. And by the time I finished college, I already had 9 papers published. I presented my first paper at 16. And I really thought what I was doing was important. But then at some point, I wonder, well, my research is in the lab and it's in a library, but it doesn't make it to the public. And it took me a long time to relearn the value of wealth and the value of money. And that's why I coined the term wealthing. How do you create wealth? Because of those experiences and because of I've lived in 9 countries, I realized that money for me has a spiritual value. And it is my role to make sure that that money is used for progress, for purpose, to make lives better, but not only to make technology make it to the world, but to provide good salaries, good taxes for the economy, to have that sense of fulfillment that what we do in progress helps others and helps ourselves.
Oh, I love that. And I'm going back to our first conversation months back where we just went down that rabbit hole. There's really a spiritual component to money. And you know, one of the most popular classes in the Stanford Business School is, you know, touchy-feely, because it's so important to be fully connected and immersed into this business, because you are impacting the world. Shout out to Silicon Valley Impact. But you're really making a
shameless plug.
Yeah, shameless plug.
I knew you were going to come with that.
But impact is at a spiritual level, and I love how you touch on that. And so we'll go down that rabbit hole a little bit later. But Rachel, again, you take the stage in a lot of places. You've immersed yourself in this life. What is it about it that you love?
Yeah, there is definitely the impact part of it, because when you're transforming government systems, it's so cool to see it when it works well. And it's so exciting to think about how lives are transformed when things are just done more efficiently and more effectively. There's also something really nice for me at being able to sit at this sort of nexus of strategy, which is something I love to do. I love to try to sort of see around corners, and I love to try to connect people to ideas and to other companies and to investors. And one of the reasons I'm, doing the fund is because I basically was just doing all of these things. I was doing this super connecting, and I was like, oh, maybe we should make a salary while we do this too. Maybe. And this ability to really move the needle forward with a network and a safety net and expertise and the things that make companies successful beyond just the knit and grit of founders, which is incredible and I'm in awe of every day. It's really fun to be able to bring that to bear for them.
Yeah, I love that. And you talk about the strategy. I'm a big fan of chess.
Yes.
I love the game. I mean, you can teach people how to move the pieces. Like, okay, the pawn does this and the rook does that. And you can learn that. And it only takes a certain level of intellectual capacity, but the strategy is what separates you. And so for me, I love that as well. And then you combine that with just the connectivity. It really has this holistic experience for, people who immerse themselves. So I love the fact that it's fun. Carl, same question. You're beaming with the question.
I couldn't hold it in. I mean, I was holding back.
Let it rip, buddy.
No, literally people. That's the thing that moves me. And for similar reasons that you two have shared, like the impact on people's lives are that transformational moment for me, right? And every day, and I've been able to connect with people and find those intersections with technology. And so growing up, you start with Apple IIe and you got internet, then you have mobility, then you have cloud, and then you have all these different advancements that we've been able to enjoy. All are about people's vision, people, having these ideas. So the founders, the startups out there, everybody has a unique idea. And whether it's radical or incremental, that impact, if you see it all the way through, it changes, right? And it changes people's lives, the way that we connect each other through it. So through with technology, it's been fascinating to have a front row seat at all this transformation that's happened right here in Silicon Valley, which is just, amazing to me.
Yeah. And that's the reoccurring theme I feel is with a lot of great entrepreneurs and people who are just doing what they're doing is there's this bigger connectivity. A lot of people you can obsess on the new tool, the new shiny thing, but it's for something. And as you're saying, it's for deeper connection. It's for, it gets you your time, like AI can get you your time back because you can delegate a lot. And when you look at things from the perspective of bigger connectivity, I think that's where your sense of purpose is realized. And so I love that. And so I'd really like to know, now that we've discovered your why and what you're doing this for, how did you get into this? Was it, like for me, I'm a second generation entrepreneur. I would have never, I mean, my father was doing what he was doing. Everything he touched turned to gold. I just thought the way that was. And I'd go out and do my own thing and then eventually kind of came back, full circle moment. But what got you into it? And Alicia, I'll start with you. It sounds like, you had a father that you were watching and learned something, and then you took your path. But what was that early stage that eventually brought you to where you are now?
Well, that's so interesting. I think for me, I was fiercely independent. So I worked since I'm 15. I make my own money. I wanted to buy my own things. I left home when I was 18. I lived in the slums in Aragua. So I do know what it is like to be there. And I have a lot of empathy for people that don't have the resources that I have. But, I had education. I knew I didn't belong there. I taught myself German. I spoke English. I spoke Spanish. So I knew I didn't belong there. There was a different thing in my mindset. But I've had several breakthroughs in my life. Probably the most important one was when a student of mine, I was a professor, and one of my students asked me to go and have lunch with his boss. Because they were looking for a woman to manage the department of product development because of the attention to details. And I was a very successful professor and researcher at that time. And over the course of 6 months, I met with this guy who was the head of product development for a Bayer company. And it was very convivial. I was starting the course on organic agriculture. I still grow my food, probably the most expensive tomatoes in California. But eventually he told me, Professor Castillo, you know nothing about business. If you want to change business, if you want to change the world, come inside and work with us because we need good people. That was almost 40 years ago. I still get goosebumps. And I remember I drove to my dad in my 15-year-old car and I said, I don't know what to do. And he said, don't do it. You're going to sell your soul to the devil. And this is what people who've never lived that don't understand. That's the way the other coin works. And I decided to take a leap of faith and work for a year. They gave me a day to continue working in the lab, which is my passion. And that was a huge learning. And for me, then I realized, the whole thing about science and scientific discovery is to prove that you're wrong. And I love that. I love the uncertainty. I think that was the biggest one. And then after that, I became an entrepreneur. And then after that, I became an investor. And after that, I became a philanthropist. And now I'm building up a family office. And for me, I came here with $600 and 2 kids and 2 boxes. And every learning opportunity that I can take, I will take. I don't want to be right. It's so wrong to be right. So I think those are the things that I enjoy, that I learn. And, being here with so many clever people, it's like, oh my gosh.
I think that's amazing in terms of humility, like stress testing your own ideas. A lot of people kind of push back and say, why are you always playing the devil advocate? But I think it's really nurturing humility. Like we don't have all the answers. And the fact that you go like, I need to prove myself wrong it's no surprise why you're such a soft-hearted, amazing person now. So I love that. And I'm definitely going to come back to a little bit about this journey that you've been on. But Rachel, I want to kind of look to you now. What was kind of your intro?
So many overlaps actually, which is really interesting. I myself come from 2 generations of entrepreneurs. My grandmother was a Holocaust survivor, as was my grandfather. So they had to rebuild their lives and then rebuild their lives again when the communists came into Hungary. And they basically fled under the Iron Curtain. And what I learned from my grandmother and now my father and now my mother is every system is there to be worked. There is no system that is immovable. There is no system that is impossible. It is really just a mindset and a strategic sort of approach to how you navigate it. And so my grandmother, when she came to the U.S., she was just here to visit her father. This was, I think, 1949. The communists came to my grandfather and were forcing him back in Hungary to join the party. And my grandmother literally found a congressman and passed legislation naming my grandfather as one of about 10 people to get out from under the Iron Curtain. She had never worked a day in her life. She was here in America. She didn't have anything. And she was just like, I see that system. I don't believe in that system. I'm going to figure out a way around it. And that sort of mindset was what allowed my family to be where we are. That ability to say, nothing is impossible. Nothing is too hard. There is a better mousetrap here that I think we can develop. And that's a huge inspiration for me when you think about these sort of immovable systems of government, which feel enormous and feel unwieldy and feel complicated. And this idea that you can start with something small and make these small sort of strategic shifts that have these outsized impacts, I learned from her. And, you know, I've been really lucky because I, in some ways, fell into this work. I graduated from college. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And my mom was basically like, well, you can't move here. So good luck out there in the great wide world. And I did this thing called the Coro Fellowship, which is a 9-month postgraduate experiential learning, essentially, where you get put into a different sector every month and you've got 30 days to complete a project, and it gives you exposure to campaigns and government and labor unions and for-profit and nonprofit. And it was amazing to sort of see how all of these industries worked, the systems that they were navigating. And I ended up at a private equity firm that was doing investing with state governments. And they were working with state governments to create programs that were moving social and economic needles within the state borders. And they'd created a network of lobbyists across the country. And so my 30-day project, which then turned into an 11-year career, was taking that network and making it an asset that we sold to other companies and providing them with the strategic guidance and the unlocks of how do you proactively engage with government so that you're seen as a partner? How do you react when government says, hey, you're not really playing in the rules? We need to start regulating you. So my first client was Lyft, and then it was Zoom and Square and Hims and Hers and Bird Scooters, who were all just getting big enough for governments to pay attention to. And then I was meeting with these entrepreneurs who were seeing systems that weren't working and wanted to transform them through technologies. They needed the same introduction. They needed the same sort of strategy, but this time it was for product market fit and for procurement and go to market and proactive relationships with governors' offices and administrative heads. And so that's really where my investing journey began. I loved working with these people who were seeing the systems and saying, we can do better. We can do better. We can deliver services more effectively. We can, help people have force multiplication through technology. And that's really what I've built my career on.
And of course, I'm going to have a follow-up question, but Carl, I'm going to come to you first. The question.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I know.
I have questions for both of you.
Yeah, so I'm going to let you think of the question. I'm going to give you the question, and I'm going to move to you. Right. I've worked with a lot of companies that haven't considered the government route.
Yeah.
And so maybe we can come back to it.
Sure.
But what startups or who out there in the startup ecosystem should consider this route, and then what they could do to kind of engage that? Because again, it's almost by accident that they stumble upon it.
It is. Yeah. And just the final thing is, I'm fond of saying every company is a GovTech company. You're either getting regulated by government or you're selling something into them. And so having a strategy for either one of those routes is really, really important.
Yeah. And we'll definitely come back to that. Carl, you're leaning in.
Yeah. So, it's fascinating, both the stories. Mine is a bit different. I literally am a military brat. My father is the reason why I'm here. Obviously my mother as well, but literally a military brat. My father in the late 50s to leave, I think that's about segregation time in the Midwest, Cleveland, Ohio. My mother and father were both there. The war had started with Vietnam, and rather than get drafted, he said, hey, I'm going to go, join the military and carve out my destiny. So he went to school. What my father taught us is like an amazing work ethic. He was always educated. He was in the military, every class he can take. So that was his, early college experience. we were stationed all over the place. He had kids wherever he was stationed. So he and my mom were, a production unit. That's how I learned business the first time. Right. So, but everywhere, my sisters, I'm the youngest of 5 kids, 4 sisters. Right. And so the other joke is my dad kept trying until he had a boy. Right. So landed in Silicon Valley in Mountain View, California. That's where I was here. But my dad eventually retired from the military to raise his family, and he began a corporate career as an engineer at Fairchild Semiconductor. So watching him go back to school and get a degree and then raise his kids, and then I was the last of the Mohicans. So literally the last kid out of San Jose State, when I graduated, my dad said, "You're going to be an engineer." Right. And I'm like, mm-mm. That's where I learned that I was a people person my first semester in engineering school.
As a compare and contrast.
Yeah, I was like, oh, God, I can't do
It was
this.
a statistics class that threw you.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, it was the calculus.
Calculus. One or the other.
Calculus. I love calculus.
I know.
You were the only one here, Alicia, who loves calculus.
I love numbers. They talk to me.
Literally,
we're so happy you're here
kiss
as a
each other.
counterbalance.
We used to call finite math infinite math,
Yeah.
right? Because we had to take it and we never could get past it.
I love it.
So yeah, literally the thread in all of that is I began a corporate career, and I started in engineering because I did have a technical sense to my direction, and my father was still very, very influential. The work ethic that he displayed every single, he went through 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. He came back and he always had more degrees or more certifications for engineering. He won awards for certain, tour missions, right, that he did. And, essentially landed back here, went to school, and then began working with applied materials. So at that point, I began, the wonders of corporate America, right? And so the politics, the education, the technology, and that's where it all started. I went through, at Intel is where I really built my biggest base of executive exposure, right? And so looking at how the landscape worked at Intel, the go-to-market programs, the sales, as well as the marketing organization, I had great exposure to so many startups, so many venture capitalists. Intel had a Intel Capital firm that I did a lot of projects with, a lot of startups there, and as well as just the overall cloud companies that were starting, right? So all these different transitions that were happening in technology, I was able to take advantage, meet a lot of folks from Kellogg, MIT, and just the smartest of the smart. So when you say that you're humbled all the time by just learning, there's so many people in this world with so many brilliant ideas, and the way that they attack their ideas are, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right. So you always are learning.
I love what I'm hearing. The insight and connectivity to your history really has, that connection helps define your character. And when I think from the perspective of startups that are fundable, you look for 2 things, or a number of things, but one of them is founder fit. And founder fit is this the right person? And one of the things that really kind of comes out during due diligence, and I'm preaching to the choir, but this is also for our audience, is the investor wants to know what is your history? Where does this fire come from? Where does, how can I get to know who you are? And constantly when I see who have been here on the show, those who have done really well have this story, and there's a connection to their story. And so it's no wonder why you and a lot of people who have been on this show, and when I say you, I mean all 3 of you, and people who've been on the show are doing so well, because there's this humility and connectivity that really has shaped your character to your past. How important is that when you're looking at startups that are going to succeed? Should other investors consider that, like the founder fit, looking at their past, their character? Is this a big, for lack of a better, I'm tripping over my own tongue, but is there due diligence that goes into revealing the character of a founder? What are your thoughts? Does this matter, or should it just be the good idea?
These are soft qualities, but they speak to ethics, values, and the things that you're talking about. Family, how do they treat their family? If they have a family or not, or extended family, you look at those characteristics, those interconnects, right? Because that's where you get your values. That's where you get your ethics, right? That's number one. Number two, skin in the game, right? A lot of these founders or, startups, they want to be funded to have a salary, right? No disrespect there, but it happens, right? That is one of the things that I look for. I want to see skin in the game. I want to see if they've actually invested their own capital into their idea, right? Because at that point, you're really in it, and that everything fuels it. You eat, sleep, and think your idea. And that is hugely important when you have an idea that's either radical or incremental, because who's going to believe it if you want to, get funded so that you can have a $200K salary and be a little comfortable. You don't want to be comfortable when you're a startup.
Yeah.
I think that one of the soft skills I look for is coachability with my founders too, and I think that's part of the fit, which is how willing are they to ask for help and sort of recognize what they don't know and what they want as their support team. And that can be other founders with them, that can be family members, that can be advisors, that can look a lot of different ways. But how much are they willing to say, I'm really committed to this idea, I think I know how to do it, there are parts of this I don't know, who can I call to ask? Because I think the most successful people have people to call. And I talk a lot with these early founders about having a personal board of directors in addition to the board of directors of their company. It's the people you call. It's not usually your partner who is surviving the day-to-day with you, but of people who you know you and like you and maybe aren't even in the same industry, but are a very good gut check for you when the days are hard or when the days are good.
So you're talking about layers, and one is the professional layer, which would be your board. You're like, I want to put the best people, close to me to help guide the strategy of the business. You're then saying the next level would be mentors or coaches or somebody who's a little bit more removed from the strategy but closer to the heart.
Yes, I think it doesn't have to be as professionalized as a coach. It's always great if that exists, or a peer group is amazing, but it's really it's more than one person, but probably less than 5 who you can call for the bad days. And you can say, I don't know a path forward here. I have an opportunity. I don't know how to think through it. What would you do as an outsider looking in who knows me? I think there's an element of interpersonal relationship there that's really important. Sometimes you get that with the coach, but sometimes you get that with, your music mentor, teacher, or from, childhood, or a boss that you loved 3 jobs ago, or someone who worked with or for you at another job that knows how you think. Just that outside perspective and that seeking of other voices, because building a company, as everyone here knows, can be an echo chamber.
Yeah.
You can really be so singularly focused on a goal that you lose the forest through the trees. And I think that the entrepreneurs that I like to invest in and work with are those that say, I need some help. And how can I either get help from you? Can you introduce me to people who can give me help? This is who I call when I already need help. Just that recognition that you can't do this alone. Yeah.
Alicia, I'm going to pass this to you, and then, but I have a follow-up. You almost went past something, and I want to touch on it really quick. And then, Brian, I saw your hand go up. But you said, don't put that on your partner. Right? Because there's already a lot there being that close. I don't want to go too far from that, because I think that's important, because when you're in business, when you're a startup, you're bringing your family in. They're in startup too. So
they're over-indexed on that investment, I would say.
What was that little one-liner you threw in and go, don't put that on your spouse or your partner?
I think you should, hopefully have a partner, whatever that looks like, spouse, partner, who you trust to give you real-time feedback. But there are so many layers to those relationships that I think sometimes there are motives that come to bear that maybe aren't the best for your business, right? You're starting to think about salary, you're starting to think about family, you're starting to think about time, you're starting to think about all of the things that make a family clock run. But sometimes you need someone who isn't living that day to day with you to give you the outside perspective on what they think or how they know you think, who isn't necessarily aware of every detail. I think that can be some of the most valuable advice.
I love that. Brian, I saw you.
Brian, I'm sorry to say this because I'm leaning in on the whole thing, but it is time for us to take a short break.
Okay. And so when we come back, Alicia, I'm going to drop this on you. We're talking about the character of a startup. Like, where does this come from and what's necessary to be fundable as well as founder fit? We'll be right back. All right, we're back, and we just had a show during the break. Oftentimes, we have great conversations when we're not recording.
It's amazing how when you turn the thing off, everybody starts.
I know
it gets very real the minute you turn the recorder off.
I know, that's why I really advocate for the power of messy. Be messy. But we were talking before the break about the qualities of a great founder. There were some other qualities that came up during our break, but I want to definitely put this question or perspective in your lap, Alicia. You all just shared backgrounds on your life that really defined who you are. And when we're going through due diligence with a company that we're potentially going to invest in, how much weight do we put on the character of a potential founder that we want to invest in?
That's a great question. So I run an investment club, and we see between 40 and 70 companies that are VC backed every single month. And we carry a very deep due diligence with around 6 or 8 of them. Sometimes there's not a good fit with our investment thesis, and we pass it around to our network. And we have invested in amazing founders that don't lead their companies. They've hired CEOs, actually this company and another company. They hired a CEO that was very prepared. Because personally, I like the uncertainty. I like the creation process. I know that once I've set up a company and I created the process, somebody else is better prepared than me to run with it because I get bored and I go. That's why investing is fantastic for me. I have 90 companies in my portfolio. I love it. But there's one thing that I think is missing in the big equation, because money is important for me. It doesn't drive me, but it definitely sustains me and allows me to make whatever I want. I value highly how founders respect money. And that's something that is very unusual. And
it's sort of a dirty secret. I think that's
Say that
so
again.
interesting.
How founders value money. And it's not about being humble or thrifty or splashing money. It's about respecting my money. Because I've struggled and I work extremely hard to have the money I have, and I would only invest in somebody that respects that. So if somebody doesn't respect that, my money, it's not a good fit for me in particular.
What does that look like?
Exactly. I'm not just trying to be part of the cool crowd, but literally you two beat me to the exact same. Yeah.
Jinx.
What does that look like?
Should I have like a silence here to let people
we're all
think
leaning
about
in.
it? I love it, Brian.
I mean, the dramatics was good on that. I was like, it's so
Dun, dun,
tied.
dun.
It's so tied to her value chain, like her ethics, where she came from, and all that. So like,
So
how
we
does that
go.
look?
Yeah. So this is funny. So everybody says, you in your deck, you start with your story, and I go the opposite. Tell me what is the problem you're solving. How is the market big? How are you going to compete in price? How are you going to make an impact? And the most interesting thing is, what are the inefficiencies that you're covering? So, for example, I have this and this. I have a gadget now in my wrist that allows people to manage their heat waves. It's good for menopause, but it's extremely good for chemotherapy. So, you can all try for chemotherapy, because the reason why a lot of people stop their chemotherapy is because of the heat waves. So then I start looking at, okay, what is the impact in having a positive treatment? And it has an impact in so many things that we don't measure. One of the things that we go when we measure a company is, what is the socioeconomic impact? How does it impact society? How does it impact people not being able to go to work? How does it impact more cars in the streets? And then after we do all of that, then we look at the founder. Because for us, it's very important that we have an understanding of how the wealth is created or is destroyed. Once we start talking about that and the numbers, we have a conversation. We drive the conversation towards, tell me about how you're building value. And you can build value by having profits, or you can build value, which is the case in biotech, by advancing science and somebody else can use it. It doesn't make sense to build a commercial platform if you're not going to use it or if it's too expensive like pharma. And if a founder cannot understand the value of money, it's not a good fit for us. Might be a good fit for somebody else. If a founder cannot tell me how they can be efficient with the funds, it's not a good fit for us. If a founder is concentrated more on the equity value of the company, and we have 6 unicorns in our portfolio, but a unicorn doesn't make you a valuable company. It makes you a company that has high valuation. There's a difference to that. But if a founder or the CEO of the company cannot have a conversation about the value of money and how it affects society, the consumers, their employees, society, how do you pay taxes, and us as investors, there's something missing, and we pass it on sometimes with a client, and we'll see them again in a year.
Can you see that first inclination of respect in how they define the problem? Because, and I'll say it a different way, when you can define a problem well, to me, it signifies this is an empathetic person. And if they're empathetic to a problem, they're going to be empathetic and understanding to an investor. They're going to be empathetic and understanding to their team. And from there, you're not just you have to evaluate strength, not to be a people pleaser. But if you find the empathy in the leader, that's a good combination, because there's going to be consideration of moving forward together.
Yeah, but if they don't have a heart of change, like Rachel was saying, like if they're not willing to be moldable or coachable, they may be empathetic, but they may not respect the words
they
that
may
you're
not be
sharing.
Effective.
Yeah, right. I mean, you've seen the story time and time again where you have founders that are not good CEOs. Right. They're horrible business people. And a lot of that comes from...
I was one of them. I was a horrible CEO. It was my way or no way.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's
all right. That's
a learning moment that you
talk to my employees. And I was a very tough mom. So
yeah. So I've seen it, lived the experience where certain founder-led CEOs do not necessarily do business well, but they're brilliant. They're brilliant, and that company would not be where they are without these folks, right? So being able to delegate, being able to set up processes, technology, people, and sometimes remove yourself from the day-to-day, right? That's the job of the CEO or the founder is to he wants to go create the vision, solve that problem, right? And then actually be respectful in terms of how you go about execution, right? Then you can deliver the plan to the CEO who also is a leader, right? So one of the things that I really value in CEOs is passion, faith, belief, and vision, right? Can they raise money? Are they connected, right? So a lot of these folks come from really, really well educated schools. They're plugged in. The ability to raise money is number one for a CEO.
I know it's a little bit like respect my money. I feel like it's the dirty secret in some ways, which is that money. I'm sorry, I'm back on the mic, everyone. I'm back from a brief break. Yeah, man, long run. A couple of things. One, this has me thinking about how the markets have changed significantly in the last 5 or 6 years. This idea of how are you respecting money? How are you respecting efficiencies? What's your exit plan? How are you thinking about your company long term? This idea that we're investing in companies for the sake of them being unicorns and sort of the question mark of what happens after that, I think is no longer viable in this fundraising economy. What I'm asking for, and what I know a lot of other VCs are asking for, is how are you thinking about efficiencies? How are you spending your money? How are you building repeatable, scalable processes? How are you thinking about what an exit looks like? What does it look like to exit at 3 million? What does it look like to exit at 25? What does it look like to exit at 100? Who are the players? What's the market share? Because you do want to invest in entrepreneurs, of course, that want to build billion-dollar companies. You're all taking a pretty long bet together, but you also want those founders that are realistic about their markets and are coachable when their mentors or boards are saying, okay, we think this is a really interesting potential time to sell or partner or be rolled up. And I think that liquidity and that respect of the investor's money has to be part of your narrative. You're selling a dream, but you're also selling an upside. And I think it's easy to forget that.
Yeah, I'm involved with one now. They're, the board, everybody, it was a beautiful idea. I won't name the startup, but eventually the CEO realized, hey, it's better to just sell the IP to liquidate so that everybody has an exit, right? And that took a lot of convincing, 7 years. Right. No one went in thinking, okay, this convertible note will turn into private, preferred shares, and we'll have this beautiful exit. Well, that was the long game, but board failures. We realized, hey, man, it costs a lot of money to dig up the earth, right? I mean, we want to be sustainable, but it's not scalable, right? And so cooler heads and say, hey, let's just actually turn this over to a group that actually will take the technology and deploy it. We also had another idea for a couple different ideas came up over a couple different periods of time. And one of them was the, suitcase that can charge your phone, right? I was like, hey, this is a beautiful place to deploy this technology. It was no. The CEO would not listen, right? And so advisors, board, eventually she's listening, and now we're having an exit. But it's an exit, right?
Yeah.
It's responsibility to the, investors.
If I may, I wrote an article about angel investing when I was doing more angel investing. Now I do more later stage. And I said, well, the whole purpose of investing in your company is to part ways and be happy about the time we spend together.
Wow.
Oh,
that is
love
so
that.
good.
I want that on a t-shirt.
That is all.
Yeah, this
all.
is not a marriage forever.
Right.
This is, we're going to have a lot of fun together, and then we're all going to part friends.
I love it.
Yeah. If I may, there's something else that has bothered me a little bit about the venture capital community here and in many other parts of the world. We don't invest and pray. And I say pray with an A, and I say pray with an, what is it?
E.
E. Thank you. Just mixing languages. And we are very active. So that creates a community within our portfolio. So the members of our portfolio, they have a set of other portfolio companies that they can exchange information with. Because I've been through so many countries, and I started 18 companies, failing some, 5 nonprofits. Chances are that I've been there, and because I'm old too, I've been there, or I know somebody who's been there. So during 22 and 23, that was a really hard time. I had founders calling me and saying, we need to fire the whole technical department. They're great. We can't pay their salaries. So it was more of a cheerleader part. But we don't wait for the founders to call us. We have meetings with them on a quarterly basis. We're not on the board because if we're on the board, we have fiduciary responsibility. We're more, like you say, humane or touchy feeling. But we're very actively involved in the success of the company. This happens, magic happens when we get together.
So talk a little bit about that reverse assessment. Oftentimes investors are just, and we focus here on the show of like, okay, what's a fundable company? But let's reverse it. Investors looking for the right fit of a VC or an investor or whatever route you're deciding to take. What are some? I mean, Alicia, you're talking about some amazing things, and I want to kind of kick this around here. But what should startups be looking for in their investors? Right? What are the expectations that they should have?
I think, at least for me, I lived in Chile 7 years. I started the first Center for Entrepreneurship. And 2 years later, I realized entrepreneurship, venture capital is the two sides of the same stick. It only makes progress if you have the other side. And I then realized that it was very important for the founders to pick the right investors. And I realized that then because I had people coming to my office saying, who is your LP? Because if your LP is this family or that family, we're not going to invest. We don't want that investment. And I think we're seeing a dramatic change in venture capital, which I love. And I want to be part of that transformation and that uncertainty and ignorance and all of that. Because I think the smart founders are realizing that getting money from somebody who's not a good fit is toxic. And if they're smart, they need to value their investors with their own unique circumstance.
Oh, I love
Well
that.
said.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, there is some responsibility on a founder to do diligence in the same way that an investor does diligence. And I think that when you're early, particularly, and all money feels like good money, it can be easy to sort of overlook red flags of investors who don't make you feel good or don't make you feel supported or seem really skeptical on the call or unkind or not communicative or, don't walk you through their process or go dark. I mean, all of these are red flags if you were dating someone. So you should not have that investor in your cap table because you're going to be working with them for 5 to 10 years. And I think that when founders give themselves, again, this is where that sort of personal board and advisors come in, the space to say, does this person make me feel supported? Does this person make me feel like I can do anything? Do they bring resources to bear that force multiply my own? Whether that's a network, whether that's an expertise, whether that's, it's not just capital. It is you're building a team around you that you're not paying a salary to, but you are building something with them. And so, because I'm so sector specific, I always recommend to my companies that they ask any VCs that they're talking to, have you done GovTech before? Do you have anything in your portfolio that looks like me? Because if not, it's not a hard no, but it's a learning curve. And it's a very long revenue cycle. And it's a huge early, revenue times suck until you find that product market fit, until you find that stickiness. Where are you in deploying your fund? How risky are you willing to be? And there's just a certain level of education that I think it would behoove founders to have in terms of speaking the vocabulary and understanding the motivations and processes of venture capitalists before they go out and raise, so that they're not negotiating at a table they don't understand.
Oh, I like that.
Well, I'd echo that. I'd also add that that's the piece of when you're looking at the leader, how well that they've defined the problem that they're going after and the systematic approach that they're going to take, right? Because then when you're deploying your funds, right, you can take steps that may seem less radical, but still very effective, right, to get your product more to launch, right? And you're efficient with the funds, you're efficiently, investing all the way through. Then you find your VCs and your investors. Those are, I really believe, if the CEO or founder can share the vision, I become more passionate than they do. Right? I'm a big evangelist at that point. So every CXO Insight, I may invite them to come out, right? So I offer that platforms, right? Go-to-market partnerships, get them in to the ecosystem that I've built, the network that I've built myself over 20 years, personal executives sharing more and more platforms. That kind of, connection, I believe, is very, very powerful when you have, like top 5 doing the same thing, right? So I look for that.
I love it. That's great insight. I definitely, unless, Alicia, do you have something you want to add to that? I saw you leaning in on that one.
I just love this conversation.
This is so good. And I don't want to break away from it, but I want to be mindful of time. But I want to come back to, Rachel, you were talking about the founder's experience with GovTech. We mentioned earlier in the show that I wanted to come back to that because a lot of startups may not see that as a pathway. Give us a little kind of 101 overview of this particular...
Why we should care about government.
Why?
Well, I mean, I think the earlier point is a sound one, which is that you're going to be interacting with government in some capacity, regardless of your industry, right? So if you're a small business, you're going to be applying for permits. You're going to be maybe getting SBA loans. Maybe you're going to be navigating chambers of commerce. Those are all sort of government entities. That's brick and mortar, sort of mom and pop shops, all the way up to, bioscience and pharma, where you are getting FDA approval and going through significant federal hoops in order to come to market. And then sort of everything in between. So I think that it's important for companies really of every scope and every size and every focus to think about how government can benefit them and support them in their growth, whether that's grants, whether that's funding, whether that's selling something directly to the government, because it's coming for you, folks. Wah, wah, wah. And for people that are thinking about government, I think that there's a tremendous sort of misnomer that government isn't innovative. I think it can be slow, and I think it can't take wild risks because it's playing with our money at the end of the day. It's the house's money. So they can't necessarily take a bunch of flyers that don't work out, but there are ways to position yourself when selling into a regulated market or directly to government where you're speaking their language. And just like you would be selling any B2B customer or B2C, you just need to understand the problem set that they're trying to solve and speak about it in a way that actually solves it, rather than saying, this process sucks. Why are we still going to the DMV? Why are we still doing all of these things on paper or manually or in person? If government isn't, like any customer, actually looking for a solution for that thing, if it's not a top 3 thing on fire of a list of 100 things on fire, you're probably not going to find a pretty willing customer. So it's doing that customer research. It's still a very human-to-human business. It's still a lot of people getting to know you as a founder in order to buy your product, rather than just going out and looking for the most efficient or least expensive product.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that this could be a fit for a majority of startups, not just a certain sector.
Well, I think that not all sort of B2G sales are a fit for all startups, but government is there, and it will be a customer or a regulator in some capacity. So having a plan, I learned this when I was doing lobbying for ride sharing, which didn't have insurance policies that allowed for ride sharing. That didn't exist. We had taxi cabs and we had people driving their personal cars, and all of a sudden this whole new industry was springing up, and governments were like, whoa, 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 whoa. And we're seeing that a little bit with AI now too. There is just some inevitability where if an industry gets sticky enough or innovative enough, government wants to make sure there are guardrails on there to protect people. Say what you will about the effectiveness of those guardrails in order to open up markets or squash markets, they exist. And so if you don't have a plan to navigate those, ideally proactively before you're in trouble, then you are going to be caught flat-footed and your business will suffer.
Yeah, I really think that I like something you said, but the planning piece of it, GovTech, is it GovTech? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I think the company has to identify if they're a vertically fit solution or horizontal solution, right? And that's part of the creation, what problem you're solving, right? But once they figure out, hey, we're a horizontal space, GovTech is really a good space to actually execute as part of a vertical strategy. What's my GTM, right? What's my GTM for GovTech, and what do we do? We're doing this right now too with Supermicro, with the place that we work. I happen to lead the global retail side of things. There is a public sector, and then there's like this, what do we call it? SLED, higher ed.
Yeah.
What are we doing, right?
State and local.
Yeah,
sort of
state
just like
and local.
Out there in the ether.
Yeah, but there's a ton of inflows of, funding coming into higher ed and research, right? Where they're doing a lot of these startups take the compute platforms from the research. Schools, universities with the free compute, they develop their models and then they test them. And 9 times out of 10, they're testing them on last generation's, compute platforms, which are slower. So Supermicro comes in, or I come in and I'll say, hey, let me give you access, to the latest and greatest NVIDIA stuff, train your models faster and 800 times faster, matter of fact. And now we have 60 new molecules that you can be tested for battery efficiency. Right. And that is exactly what happens. So your point is valid and true, right? It's just if the company doesn't identify the route, the GTM, and where they fit, then it could be very dangerous.
You can't ignore the systems around you and hope that you're just going to build in a vacuum and no one will notice. You don't want that if you're building a successful company. So figuring out what levers are available for you to pull to either work with government as a partner or be supported by government in your endeavors is really, really important.
So so figuring out that strategy, let's go back to that really quick. Where would a startup start to look for their own GTM strategy and marrying this idea of going the route of GovTech or finding resources along that line? What would that look like, if I can steal a response from you two?
So where did they start?
Yeah, where does it all begin?
Their ecosystem, their partners. Do they have an ecosystem in which they're going to market today? Right. So if you're selling one widget and you have 5 partners that are helping you to sell that widget, that's where you start, right? And then you validate, which networks and which people have which assets, right? Services, incremental technologies that differentiate your solution, right? And then you offer that differentiated solution to a segment, right? For us, looking at state and local SLED events, they basically, they don't have a school of data scientists, right? They don't have all of the resources that a Walmart would have, right? But they need the compute, and we have to compete in that, in that segment. So I'll take a new startup that has a unique workflow AI system. I'll shout them out later. But the company is perfectly fit for our solution to provide differentiation to the school who needs workflows. They need a full stack integration and the compute. So now I've just bolstered my product through partnership, right? And that's one of the GTM ideas that make me successful, right? With the actual revenue sales of that platform and the software that's involved with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I love it. Rachel?
I think it goes back to our earlier conversation around what I look for in my founders. And I think one of the things that is most important to me is hearing how many customers they've talked to. Because if you haven't talked to 25, 50, 100 people who might be a fit for your product, whether that's government or another vertical SaaS, you probably don't really understand the problem or the language. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about government as a go-to-market motion, you need to start going to talk to government. And that can feel really intimidating, especially in an era where people hate picking up the phone to call. But government has phone numbers. You can just call a department and they'll just tell you what their problem is. You can ask them anything you want. And it can feel like this impossible box to break into because where do you start, which level? But the reality is they are there to be helpful to you as a constituent, and you as a constituent are there to ask some questions about their problem sets. Mm-hmm. And so it shouldn't be a null set here. Mm-hmm. And so I really encourage people who think government might be a fit to go talk to every government department that they can, figure out who might be buying it, figure out what their processes are. If you haven't come out of that, which is of course the best product market fit, which is like, the problem, you've lived it, you understand the workflows. If you don't know that, go talk to a bunch of people and go talk to a bunch of other companies that are selling into government, figure out the process. Yeah.
This goes back to what we were talking about actually during the break about constantly educating yourself. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask this question as we start to wind down. Alicia, I'm going to start with you. What should investors and startups be educating themselves on now to kind of level up their game? Because I think the game of investment and startup is changing just a little bit. Mm-hmm. Where should their education attention be going towards?
Well, it's about actually creating a community because the circumstances change all the time, and we learn a lot from our own portfolio companies. One thing is sort of consistent throughout life is your values and your goals personally. I think my life is too interesting to waste on things that I'm not passionate about. Education in terms of financial concept. I did my PhD in finance at 50. That's a little bit late. So start earlier if you can. I didn't know the word assets and liabilities until I was 35. And I already was a professor. I always had an executive career. So just don't assume that you know that. And for me, education is a constant endeavor. So just because you learn a book doesn't mean that is right or that doesn't change. So it just continuously find yourself asking questions and learning, and the concepts evolve. I want to add, if I may, one thing that I learned through a mentoring process. I mentor Ukrainians to practice English. And one of these Ukrainian women told me the problem with AI is that it is not designed to say, I don't know. And that completely changed the way we use AI, because it cannot tell you, I don't know. It will try to find an answer.
Not yet.
And,
No.
and that is part of the education. Just to be curious and skeptical about that.
I love that. So I definitely want to start to wind down, but there's one last thing I want to ask all three of you. Well, two things. One, what's next for you? And then how can people connect with you? And Carl, I'll start with you. What's next for you, and how can people connect with you?
You know, I'm enjoying this podcast so much. I think I'm going to, come back again and
Just
ask
stay here.
Just stay here. Camp out.
Here now.
I think I'm
Third
enjoying
host.
it.
Everybody's happy.
You're going to have to rename yourself Brian. That's the problem.
The third
Well, I
Brian.
like the Sparks part
Brian
of it.
3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
He's going to be the other Brian.
Literally, there is, so educating, the companies that I'm involved in now for the next 24 months, I kind of really see myself out there evangelizing what's happening with AI, right? And different verticals, right? So you mentioned it's not able to do something yet, right? And that's the yet part, because agentic AI is on the way. It's happening now with reasoning, and the way that how fast this is all happening is phenomenal, right? So sort of want to catch the wave and continue to, create these solutions, because I feel like it's that time, the .com time, right? It's the mobility time, that transformation, and I'm catching it front row. I know things that Gartner doesn't know. I know things that IDC does not know yet, right? And I can be influential, and that could be transformative for me personally, right? Not only financially, but you're able to, find different startups and things. But I really want to have some transformational impact on humanity. And I think this is one of the ways I can do that with AI. So that's kind of what's next. What was the other question you asked?
How can people connect with you?
So you can always reach me on LinkedIn, Carl Brown. There's this picture of me up there that I think everybody can, relate to. It's a guy in a suit, handsome black guy.
Love it. Yes, they've gone wild.
Humble too.
I'm just a small baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, literally LinkedIn. I can give out my email address. You can. It's Carl_supermicro.com. Carl Brown. Carl_Brown at supermicro.com. Reach out to me. Let's talk GTM. Let's talk strategy. Let's talk verticals. I love it. I'm here for it.
I love it. Rachel, what's next for you?
What's next is closing the fund and continuing to build this community around GovTech and really state and local transformation through technology, through local decision makers, state decision makers, policy change, community and partnerships. It's such a joy to be doing something you love and to be formalizing that in a meaningful way after working in this space for such a long time. So if you're a GovTech company or people interested in GovTech or GovTech curious, reach out to me. LinkedIn is a great way to do that. Rachel Stern 12 at GovTech Ventures. And I probably 3/4 of my conversations every week are with new people, which is a kind of wild ride. Every day I look up, I'm like, how do I know this person? Who were they connected to me by? Did I meet them on LinkedIn? So it's really a fun way to network, and I will see it and I will respond to it.
I love it. And Alicia, what's next for you?
I want to disrupt venture capital. I'm just ready to do that. I've been at this for 30 years. It's time to, add some spices to it. The funds, I have a fund, and I'm a LP in 12 funds. It's ready to be disrupted. So that's what I want to do. And I'm building a family office with my kids. I have 4 grandkids. And it's very interesting to try to explain to them what investing is. It's not savings. It's just really interesting. And I want to enjoy my life a little bit more too.
I love that. And if you need any help kicking the hornet's nest, I'm here for you.
Okay.
So, and how can people connect with you?
Oh, I'm sorry. So we have a platform company website called wealthing.com. And then we have a club and we have a VC. Nice. Wealthing, and LinkedIn always works. But, I'm traveling. I have a team. So the team makes sure that nothing falls through the cracks.
I love it. This has been a great conversation. I want to thank all of you for being here. This was really, really good.
Thanks for having us.
I feel like we could just sit down individually and go an extra hour. Collectively, we could probably be here all day, but you're all amazing. I want you to come back anytime you want. Just ping me. And if you're out there listening and you want to be a part of the show, you can find me, Brian, at Silicon Valley Impact. Give us a call. Connect with us. Brian, I think we pretty much covered everything we're going to do today.
Fantastic, everybody. Thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah.
Really great show.
Brian.
We'll see you all next week. Stay safe, and we will see you soon. Yeah.